Hello everyone, Sandwichface here, and whoa, is it really that time again already? Hey guys, remember the OLDC? It's back, in POG form. Yep, it's time for round 1 of the 2023 OLDC, which I actually forgot was only the first round of this year because round 2 of 2022 came out earlier this year, but whatever. Anyway, we have, let's see, holy shit, over 25 maps? That's a ton. Which probably means I should spend less time talking and more time playing. So is the OLDC going to be an improvement over the last one? Or could it be worse? Or maybe even of similar quality? Let's delve right in and find out. Before I get into any of the community maps, I'd actually like to take a moment and talk about this round's hub world. I didn't do this last time I reviewed the OLDC, but this time I figured, well, it's just as much as a map as the rest of the OLDC entries, so why not? If I had to sum up my thoughts on this year's hub in 2 words, they'd be too big. While I understand this OLDC had a lot of entries this time around, the sheer size of this hub world is kind of pushing it a little. Did it really have to be this big? Thankfully, there is a fast travel function built into the hub, making it a little easier to traverse. Although, the fast travel panels themselves are a little janky. They're activated by pressing spin while standing on them, but sometimes this doesn't work and you just end up spin dashing off the panel. The Desert Temple theme is really nice though, and it gives the collab itself a really nice first impression on the player. Anyway, that's enough about the hub world. Let's finally get started with round 1 of the 2023 OLDC. Alright, first up we have the Cyber Grind by Buggy the Bug. This level for me was an interesting one to start with, as it's very far from the standard SRB2 level. This level is more of an endurance round than the usual point A to point B type of deal. You're thrown into this square arena and have to fend off against wave after wave of enemies, sometimes including bosses. What's interesting here is how the arena changes shape each wave. This was easily the most impressive part of this map, and it was always interesting to see what new challenge would be presented with each wave because of this. However, it's not without its flaws. Sometimes enemies will spawn directly on top of you and get a cheap hit, and the infinite length of the challenge, while interesting, does seem somewhat counterintuitive to the whole collab thing we've got going on here. Especially if you play without saving like I do and have to exit to the main menu just to exit the stage. Overall, a very creative and technically impressive map, although it's a bit rough around the edges in some spots. Next, we have Spleenic the Game Zone, Act 1 by Dash Lilhug. Well, this is certainly, interesting? Well, in summary, this level is kind of like a weird pseudo-remake of SRB2's main campaign, consisting of small parodies of each zone. It's clearly all done for laughs, and some of it actually did get a chuckle out of me, but the level itself definitely has room for improvement. For starters, the level does feel a bit empty at times, despite the distinct art style. Enemies are very few and far in between, and yet despite this, I still feel the level needs more checkpoints, due to some very cheap bottomless pit placement. The level ends on this weird little island area, which frankly I'm not sure what the reference is, or even a reference at all, but it does come out of nowhere even if I don't really have any issues with it. In short, I'll praise the fun art style and humor, but the level design holding it together is rather weak. Would I say it sucks, like the author states in the level subtitle? No, but it's definitely not great either. The next level on our list is Confined Ravine by Vixuzen. I'm pretty certain this creator entered a level into the last OLDC that was very similar to this one, although if I had to pick between the two stages, this one would probably win. This level in question, while not the most creative or groundbreaking level ever made, does present some engaging platforming challenges regardless. This level is about 5 minutes in length and does manage to make each of those minutes count. It doesn't waste your time with too much empty space and waiting. Despite this, the level visuals do feel very samey, and I feel some more visual flair in the form of some more texture variety and more interesting set pieces could go a long way in making this a really good level. Overall, a decent stage. Didn't really have any major issues with it, and it was a decently fun level to play. Our next level is Veggie Keep Zone, Act 1 by Jisk. This level was pretty bland, honestly. While I like the whole farm theme the level is going for it, the level unfortunately doesn't really do anything with it. It just feels like another act of Greenflower Zone. I do think the level looks nice though, even if there really isn't much going on in it. There's this room around the halfway point where there's this weird, angry potato boss thing. It takes a while to kill, but defeating it opens up this secret dark room. At the end of this area is a button with a ring on top of it. As far as I'm concerned, this button doesn't do anything. It's an interesting secret, but I can't help but feel like the secret is unfinished, and something else was supposed to be here. Overall, it's fine, I guess. Bland, but inoffensive and somewhat enjoyable. Also, nice Beta Sonic cameo. Next up, we have Scarlet Canyon Zone Act 1 by Fen and Neon SRB2. I actually played this level twice because this level is designed in a very interesting way. On my first playthrough of this level, I stuck to the top path along the edge of the canyon and found the level to be very samey and boring. There was nothing really going on up here, just a winding path with some enemies here and there. On my second playthrough, however, I took the bottom path, and I realized what this level was trying to do. If you take the bottom path, suddenly way more options open up, and there's a lot of freedom in how you approach this level. You can start at the bottom and take any way you want up to the top, or you can start at the top and jump down to the bottom. You can play this level several times and experience it a different way each time. Granted, there are still some parts where I think more could have been done with the idea, and there definitely could be less empty stretches of nothing. But overall, this level is a very solid premise and it executed it decently. It's simple on the surface, but kind of complex once you really dive into it and understand it. And that's just the way I like it. The next level is Radiant Reverie by Princess Plashima. Before we begin, do you like bubbles? Well, I hope you didn't say no, cause hoo boy, we got a lot of those. This level comes packed with all sorts of custom content, custom enemies, custom objects, and these really impressive scripted rainbow paths. The level itself is really well built. The bubbles manage to stay interesting throughout the entirety of the level, and the level design itself is engaging and fun. The level doesn't really have any big issues, although I did find myself overshooting platforms due to the bubbles on at least one occasion. Additionally, and this is just a personal gripe of mine, I really do not like 2D mode. At all. And this level has 2 whole 2D sections. Now, I know there are people who like 2D mode, and I don't see an issue with this. So don't take this as an actual criticism of the stage, as this is just my opinion on SRB2's 2D mode in general. Overall, a very well done and fun level. Is what I'd say if this level is real and not just a weird dream I had once. Nah, I'm just messing with you. This level was pretty damn good.
It's called a road, it's called a rainbow road. It is a road that you go.
Next, we have Twilight Hill Zone by C-Sean07 Corey. This is a level that's very much built around water, and water slides. And you know what? It actually does them pretty well. It never drags these water sections on for too long, and it knows when to switch gears to something else. However, this level has one major flaw that ruins a lot of it for me. These rooms. These kill all enemies to progress rooms. There is no faster way to make the flow of a level come to a screeching halt than to make a room like this. It'd actually be better to just not have these rooms, as they aren't really much of a challenge and only serve as minor roadblocks. It just seems unnecessary to stop the player in their tracks for like 3 crawlos when the rest of the level flows so perfectly. Another problem that arises from these rooms is actually this room right here. So I come to this door right here, and because there's a robo hood right next to it, I assumed I open this door the same way as every other door in this level, by killing every enemy. Well, I kill every enemy in the room, and nothing happens. So what was I actually supposed to do? Oh, nothing, just walk over here and hit this switch, lol. It's counterintuitive to present the player with the idea that killing all enemies in a room opens doors, and then have exactly one room where this doesn't apply. It just brings needless confusion to an otherwise solid level. Lastly, there's this section here where you have to platform over this water current, but if you fall into the current, it hurts you? It's also got this weird purple hue to it compared to the rest of the water in this level, so could it be that this isn't water? Could it be that this is Weeno? No, that can't be right. Overall, this is a pretty solid level, but it's held back by some rather disappointing flaws. Next, we have Blossom Breeze Zone, Act 1 by Spiritsune and Otheus. This level looks beautiful. That's all I can really say about the visuals. This level seems to show off a lot of what UDMF is capable of, as there's really big crawlers and springs all over the stage. There's also a good effort to make use of slopes and physics in this level as much as possible, as there's all of these quarter pipes and half pipes everywhere. However, this level was a little confusing to navigate. The first few rooms especially don't really have any clear sense of direction, and it took a little bit of wandering just to figure out where the hell the level wanted me to go. Also crabs. Lots and lots of crabs. New crabs even. Like crabs with 2 big claws they punch with, or these crabs that swing their claws around like a ball and chain. In summary, this level was very well made, and it's a lot of fun to play, well, once you figure out where to go, that is. Next up, we have Blue Mountain Zone, Act 2 by Avalis. This level seems to be designed with the intent of being a huge throwback to version 2.0. Blue Mountain Zone Act 2 in question was an unfinished level left in version 2.0's zones.dta. Hey, on an unrelated note, please bring back Blue Mountain, new Sonic Team Jr., hangout servers with it were fucking Kino. Anyway, if I'm reading the subtitle right, this level was actually made in 2.0 first, then ported to 2.2 for the OLDC. And it definitely shows in some aspects of this level, right down to this fake slope made of tiny stairs near the end of the stage. There's also this lava slide section here, which would be uninteresting on its own was it not for the fact that it has a built-in hard mode. While that is pretty neat, unfortunately the rest of the level doesn't really have much going for it. Most of the level doesn't feel like it's trying to make Blue Mountain Zone Act 2 more than it's running wild with the gimmick of being a 2.0 level in 2.2, as the level design in some instances feels more like a game of how many things from 2.0 can I cram into a single level, than anything coherent. Hell, there's even this polyobject platform ripped straight from 2.0's Arid Canyon Zone, missing floor included. The texture choices are all over the place and don't always make sense, such as this weird green electric floor in the middle of this snow-capped peak. The level design itself is very spaced out, and is sometimes little more than an empty hallway with maybe 1 or 2 crawlers filling the void. Lastly, if for whatever reason you decided to play the OLDC as Knuckles, don't take the left path at the start of the level. That no Knuckles sign isn't just a suggestion, it's a warning. Trying to go past this sign as Knuckles results in you being unceremoniously crushed by the ceiling. This is really fucking unnecessary and stupid, honestly. If you wanted to prevent players from taking this path as Knuckles, why not just put a no-climb wall here, or a wall that's too high for Knuckles to jump over? Or both. It's needlessly overkill to completely delete the player from existence for even daring to cross the no-Knuckles sign. It's clearly done out of spite and not a genuine design decision with any good reasons backing it up. Overall, I really appreciate the throwback to version 2.0 as someone who started playing this game with version 2.0.6, but unfortunately it falls very short at delivering a proper, completed Blue Mountain Zone. It does, however, successfully capture that feeling of downloading a really weird amateur level from a Hangout server back in the day, so it's got that going for it at least. Alright, next we have Sandy Night Zone by The Last Kitchen Gun. I don't really have much to say about this level, honestly. It's not a bad level, in fact it's a pretty decent level, it's just, I don't know, very by the numbers in level design. It's got everything you'd expect from a 2.2 era SRB2 level, with slopes and springs chaining into each other seamlessly, but I guess the fact that I can't find anything notable in this level to talk about is a bit of an issue. There's really nothing that makes this stand out from the several other desert levels I've played in all my years playing SRB2. I guess it takes place at night? That's something? I guess? Again, it's not a bad level, it's just not interesting. Overall, this level gets a desert out of 10 from me. Really wish there was more to talk about here, honestly. Next up, we have Tofu,
Talveg.
Oh, Talweg. A line connecting the lowest points of successive cross-sections along the course of a valley or river. Bro really busted out the thesaurus for that one, god damn. Anyway, our next level is Tofu Talweg Zone by Roy Curbs. This level is big. Very, very big. In fact, sometimes I feel it's a little bigger than it really needs to be. Most of the bigger rooms in this level don't feel like they're utilizing all of that space effectively, as there's a decent amount of lakes with nothing of interest in them, and the larger size contributes to a lot of the confusion I had in navigating this level. Granted, there's a lot of fun stuff here too, such as the abundance of Sonic CD enemies and the very creative use of springs here with these spinning spring wheel thingies. Whatever they are, they're very interesting, even if they do take a little getting used to. Overall, it's a very creative level, right down to the name even, but again, it's very big. And here, the size feels more detrimental than it is beneficial. Also, why is it blue? Next up is Tectonic Bluff Zone by Trusty Gun. This volcanic stage has one standout mechanic, these big pink flowers. Jumping on them sends you into this weird, slow fall state. The control here is floaty and rather stiff, and in some cases if your movement is just a little bit off, it's a slow, painful descent into a fiery grave. Other than that, it's a lava level. I like the green textures this level uses, and the level tries to be very non-linear with how open-ended some of these outdoor rooms are. However, this open nature to the level leads to some very confusing moments. After all, there's nothing more confounding than happily running through a level without a hitch, only to find that suddenly the path you took only leads to a 1-up and a dead end. This level is okay. Not good, not bad, just okay. The flower mechanic could be really cool, but the control for it right now really needs some work. It just doesn't feel all that fun in its current state. Next, we have The Factory by Enes2 Gamer. You know, for what I'm assuming is the creator's first level, this is pretty damn ambitious. This level has a little bit of everything, from 2D sections to twisters to even zoom tubes. And despite that, the level design manages to remain faithful to the factory theming, and none of the many gameplay mechanics packed into this stage feel out of place. Unfortunately, as the story usually tends to go with first levels like this, there are some issues. The level itself is very cramped, and there usually isn't much freedom in where you can go in each room. This conveyor section with the crusher spam is very annoying because crushing hazards just kinda suck in general, and the zoom tubes are finicky to say the least. There's also this red spring on this wall at the very end of the level that doesn't like to cooperate and often completely misses its intended target, which is this red diagonal spring right here. This usually means you'll end up falling all the way to the bottom of the room and have to start this entire platforming section from the beginning, which is pretty frustrating. Overall, it's a great first attempt at a level that, unfortunately, misses the mark in a few key places. Next up is Network Terminal by Pigs 2. It was at this level when I uncovered a terrifying truth. Sonic Forces actually has fans. I'm kidding, of course, but this level makes a pretty good effort trying to recreate Sonic Forces level design, as it has the very linear hallway design, copious amounts of 2D mode, and even its fair share of automation. There are some interesting set pieces, such as this hallway with doors with a collapsing floor at the end, and a lot of roller coaster-like bits ripped straight from Chemical Plant Zone, although I don't think it's a necessarily bad level more than it's just kind of mediocre. Although I really don't know what the creator expected when trying to copy the level design of a game already known for its poor level design into SRB2. Overall, the level does seem like it was a very honest effort, but I just don't really understand the decision to copy Sonic Forces of all things, instead of a game with actually decent level design. I guess this really is that feeling when knee surgery is tomorrow. Alright, next up is denk by Beweenus. God, I hope I pronounced that somewhere kind of close to correctly. This level is another non-traditional level like Cybergrind was, although this time the level is a huge sprawling button hunt level. The goal of this stage is to find the number of buttons required to open the exit before time runs out. Not every button is required to beat the level, but finding all of them rewards you with a few bonus emblems. This is a pretty neat time attack stage, as the race against the clock doesn't feel too stressful, and the time limit is very generous. However, like Tofu Tallweg Zone earlier, I think the level's size is to its detriment, as the sheer openness and scale of the stage makes it hard to remember where I've already been and where I haven't been. While the level does mark buttons with this aura of light around them, it isn't really that helpful when the level's size manages to obstruct these as much as possible. It's a very fun challenge level, even more so to those who want to 100% it, but sometimes the level just feels too big for its own good. Next, we have Hilltop Fort Zone by Mammoth Mogul Fan 22. This level is more or less the illegitimate child of Castle Eggman and Hilltop Zone, as the name would suggest. The level has some pretty strong visuals, and there's never a moment where the level lets you sit back and relax. Each room is armed to the teeth with all sorts of enemies and traps to really keep you on your toes. The level even has this kind of sort of volcanic eruption near the end that looks pretty neat. However, the downside of this level is that it's very linear, with little to no branching paths in place to keep each playthrough fresh. I guess my biggest complaint is that the level feels too busy. There's a few rooms that are so densely packed that it ends up being sensory overload and it becomes hard to make sense of any of it. Like really, did we really need this many spike balls on screen? Overall, it's a neat and even kinda tough level, but it tries a little too hard to be tough sometimes, and just ends up being overcrowded and kinda cramped. Here we are at Sunset Skyscrapers Zone by Marble Cheese. This level was not all that great. While the level visuals are very unique and the basic idea is very creative, the execution is somewhat lacking. The skyscraper platforming can feel somewhat clumsy and confusing sometimes. This room forces you to wait for platforms to very slowly drop under a wall, and immediately after that is a fan that just shoves you into a pit if you jumped into it anywhere that isn't exactly where the author intended you to go. There's also this interesting idea halfway through the level where you get forced onto this hoverboard with a gun attachment of some kind and you fly through tunnels and over buildings. But the hoverboard itself is painfully stiff and not fun to control, and the gun doesn't feel all that useful as it's easier to avoid obstacles with the board than it is to try and hit anything with these tiny bullets. Overall, the level is stylistically very strong, but it doesn't have the solid level design required to make this a truly great level. Next up is Sky Sanctuary Zone by Malum. This level certainly was a remake of Sky Sanctuary Zone from Sonic & Knuckles, which was released for the Sega Genesis in 1995 and was developed by Sonic Team and Sega Technical Institute. The level definitely does have a good sense of speed, and there are a lot of sections where you really get to experience Sonic's incredible speed. Additionally, one of the paths in this level takes you through the Death Egg, although the execution is rather lackluster. The lack of visual variety and the gravity switching mechanic makes this the most confusing part of the level by far. I was never really certain whether I was going the right way or just ended up turning myself around again somehow. And outside of the Death Egg path, this level was pretty unremarkable, and also way bigger than it really needs to be. It's faithful to the source material and has some fun moments, but overall it's really nothing to write home about. Alright, next we have High Jump Hijinks Zone by Glapper. Now this is pretty cool. This level will put your knowledge of shield abilities and SRB2 in general to the test. Each room is a challenge with a certain shield ability in mind, such as this room with the Whirlwind and Lightning Shield's double jump ability, and this room with the Fire Shield's lava immunity. It's also got a ton of custom enemies taken from the classic Sonic games, such as Octus from Oil Ocean Zone and Blaster from Hydro City Zone. It's fun, creative, and even tough, but this is the longest level in the OLDC by far. How long, you might ask? 6 minutes? Nope. 7? Not even close. 8? 9? Well, how about 10 minutes long? The time it takes for you to complete this level would net you a time over in any classic Sonic game. It's a great level, but it could also easily be split into like 3 separate stages and have the same impact. Next up, we have Soulside Dungeon Zone, Act 1 by Zaxel Katsugyo. It's fine. It's your standard Zaxel platforming gauntlet with just about every enemy in the book thrown in. There's nothing here that I haven't seen in just about every other level Zaxel's ever made. It's infinitely more appealing than Zaxel's last OLDC entry at least, although that level set my expectations for any Zaxel level at rock bottom, so I don't know whether this is the low expectations or the fatigue from playing over 15 levels in a row talking. I guess I could sum up this level as been there, done that, is what I'm saying. Although, Zaxel actually delivered far better music than he did last time. Next on our list, we have Beerabuto Sand Zone by Polaris. Oh hey, a Mario mode level. You don't see one of those every day. If the level name didn't strike you as familiar, the level itself seems to be very heavily inspired by the original Super Mario Land on Game Boy, right down to the desert theming. The level utilizes the Mario theming pretty well as it's seamlessly integrated into the desert level surrounding it. The level does actually feel fun to play, when it's in 3D that is. I know I've already stated earlier that I don't care for 2D mode at all, but the 2D sections here do have the most issues out of the entire level. There's some sections where it's not clear where you're supposed to go, like this part here where there's a spring in this question mark block, but there's also a clearly designed staircase for you to jump off of here. There's also just a number of parts in these 2D sections that just feel like blind jumps, even though they really shouldn't be, as these particular platforms are placed just too far out of reach for the camera, making jumps between them more nerve-wracking than they should be. Finally, there's this weird quirk with this fire flower block at the very start of the stage. Like, seriously, why am I allowed to do this? Overall, it's a really neat Mario mode level with a nice layer of Super Mario Land sprinkled on top, but the 2D sections constantly interrupt the good flow that the 3D sections have. Alright, next we have Rigonometas 33 by Infernor. Hey guys, look! It's Sonic Mars on the 32X! Jokes aside, this is in fact a level taking place at a Mars base, and it's pretty damn cool. The level really makes use of low gravity in the bubble shield here, with there being many secrets that are only accessible if you don't lose the shield. This level screws with gravity in more ways than one, such as this room with this floaty floor. I guess the only issues I have with the level are that it's easy to miss these bubble shields at the very start due to them being tucked away in this corner, and this whole keypad puzzle idea feeling very underutilized, with the only time you're forced to interact with it being at the very start of the level, with the solution being extremely obvious and in plain sight. Overall, some of the gravity mechanics take a little getting used to, but are very fun once you get the hang of it. The level has a great theme and looks absolutely gorgeous. Although I do have one question. What the hell is going on up here? Next up, we have Robotropolis Tunnels by Roger Regger Roger. Like Roger's prior OLDC entry, and every other level he's made, just about every asset created for this level was hand-drawn by the author, and as a result, the level carries its own unique art style. The first part of this level is basically War from Pizza Tower if Pizza Tower was a Sonic game. It's a race against the clock on the bottom of the screen, and to stop it from reaching zero, you have to keep destroying these red monitors. The platforming in some parts of this first section feel like they're designed with the intent of slowing you down as much as possible, so breaking every monitor you see is a must. After that, the level transitions into a more standard format, and this part for me is where the level peaked, as the level design here just flows so well and is just so fun to blast through. The last section of this level has you face off against this giant robot, although he's really just in the background sniping at you as you make your way up this wall. The platforming here isn't all that great. It's very slow and plodding for a section where you're both avoiding missiles from a giant robot and racing against the war timer once again. And I think I've died more times than I can count to this weird collapsing gray slope. In summary, it's got all the creativity and fun I've come to expect from a Roger level, but damn, that last section with the giant robot wasn't that great of an ending, and it put a bit of a damper on an otherwise fantastic level. If you ask me, Roger's last OLDC entry was better. Pizza Tower references and giant robots ain't got nothing on those funny swivel chairs. Next level on the list is Algae Railway Zone by Jabsphere94. This level is fucking obnoxious to play. The level is an Emerald Hunt level, and it takes place in this pretty small enclosed area. Sounds easy enough, right? Not even close. This level is filled to the brim with spammy enemies that can snipe you from any point in the map, making navigation a frustrating chore and feels more like a bullet hell than a Sonic level. Even worse, the multi-tiered design of the map makes the Emerald Radar nigh useless if you don't know exactly where to go. The only redeeming factor of this map is that the emeralds always spawn in the same 3 places, so if you manage to make it through this hell once, you don't really need to play it again. It's an interesting concept, and the custom enemies are well done, but Jesus Christ on a cross, stop spamming them, they're so horribly annoying to deal with. Easily my least favorite level in the OLDC by far. Next we have Scrap Brain Zone Act 1 by Silk. Right away I'm getting major first level vibes from this. The texture choices here are all over the place, and the level is barely recognizable as Scrap Brain Zone from Sonic 1. While there are some custom textures thrown into the mix here, they're not utilized all that well and just seem like they were thrown wherever the creator wanted without much thought. There's also a lot of cheap deaths involving crushers, like this room with all these Lanceobots. Like seriously, how are you supposed to know the ceiling is going to come crashing down in your hope and dreams like this? Certainly not in your first try at least. The level is actually much more ambitious than you might think, as it isn't just one act of Scrap Brain Zone, it's actually all 3, plus a little bit of Metropolis as well. The Act 3 section of this level is easily the most well made, as the texture choices are consistent, level design isn't too bad, and it's overall a somewhat faithful recreation of the original level. In conclusion, this level very much gives off the feeling of learning along the way, as the level gets much more cohesive and ambitious the further you get into it. It's very inconsistent, and the level design quality ranges from obvious first level to actually somewhat okay throughout the entire level. Not bad for a first attempt. And last, but certainly not least, we have Final Zone Act 2, also by Silk. This is the second part of the last level, Scrap Brain Zone Act 1, and it begins with something that looks like Sonic 1's final boss. However, upon hitting Eggman once, you'll find out you're in for something completely different. The level turns into an escape sequence of sorts, with lots of speed boosters and tight platforming that adds to the tension. At the end of all this lies the true final boss, and it's actually not a bad boss fight. It's a tad too easy if you play as Sonic, however, as a consistent pattern of jumping and thwacking is enough to beat this boss pretty consistently. As this level is made by the same creator as the previous level, it suffers from some of the same issues, such as the level design and texture work feeling somewhat slapdash without too much thought put into it. Overall, it's not the greatest final boss ever made, but it's neat that the OLDC this time around has something resembling an ending. That's pretty cool, I guess. And that's it, folks. That's every OLDC entry for round 1 of the 2023 OLDC. Honestly, this OLDC was miles better than the last one, with more levels I can consider really well done, and the lesser entries this time weren't too bad either, with at least one exception, of course. Hopefully the community can keep up this kind of pace with the next one, because I'm actually a little glad I didn't have to be too harsh for once. Granted, that'll change when the next SRB2 trash bin rolls around, but I digress. The real question is whether I can keep up with this pace, because holy shit, this is easily my longest video yet, and it was quite the challenge to write. Well, I guess that'll be it for this video, everyone. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell icon, and join the Trash Bin Central Discord linked in the description down below. Peace out, gamers, and see you next time.